अस्सलाम वालेकुम नाजरीन, हम हैं मेपल चाय पॉडकास्ट पे असद भाई के साथ। असद भाई और मैं को होस्ट हैं मेपल चाय पॉडकास्ट के। और हमने ये पॉडकास्ट इसलिए शुरू किया है क्योंकि हमें लगता है कि पाकिस्तानी जो कनाडा आते हैं उनको इतना अंदाज़ा नहीं होता कि कनाडा कैसा है, आना चाहिए नहीं आना चाहिए। बहुत से बच्चे होते हैं हमारी तरह के। अभी हम दोनों अपने बैचलर्स पढ़ रहे हैं यहाँ पे, साइमन फ्रेजर यूनिवर्सिटी है वैंकूवर एरिया में, बर्नबी स्पेसिफिकली। और बहुत से बच्चे आते हैं, उनको लगता है कि कनाडा आ जाएंगे पता नहीं क्या हो जाएगा, इधर क्या हो रहा है, और बहुत दिहाड़ियाँ लगाएंगे टू बी फेयर। तो असद भाई, आपके अंदाज़े में कैसा लगा आपको कनाडा, और क्या बच्चों को आना चाहिए नहीं आना चाहिए, क्या होता?
Well, first of all, अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
वालेकुम
क्या हाल है
अस्सलाम।
सर? मजे?
अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, मज़े भाई,
कितने
मज़े,
मजे?
बहुत मज़े भाई, बहुत।
वो जो शिपाटर पीछे बैठा है उसको बोल जरा वो लाल बटन दबाए
लाल
ताकि
बटन।
I think what does it say?
बूस्ट।
Okay. What does the other one say? Quiet. Put the quiet one then. All right. Okay. What was your question again? Sorry, I forgot.
My question was, जो पाकिस्तान से बच्चा आ रहा है कनाडा,
Uh-huh.
A, should he come to Canada? And B, if he is coming to Canada, what things should he know before he books his ticket?
Wow, that's a very there's so much depth in that topic. Essentially, so your question was, let me rephrase the question. Your question was, should they come to Canada?
Yes.
So this can't be really answered in a yes or no statement. It's more of like, are you kind of ready for it in a sense? बहुत सारे लोग यहाँ पे आते हैं, and a lot of these people, this is their first experience living alone, and managing life itself alone. So that doesn't mean कि like बाहर से you look at it, it's like हाँ घर पे अकेले रह लिया, and you have freedom, but there's a lot more dimensions to that conversation. So there's things like just managing your life in general, your social aspect, your education, your time, your overall direction in life. And so I think obviously in my limited experience I can't really say for everyone, but there's a lot more knowledge that is required in a sense. There's a lot more research you can do just to make your experience here in Canada a lot better. In a sense that make sure to research everything thoroughly and really kind of understand, okay, these are the dynamics of living alone, and talk to people who have been living alone. That's one of the best ways to learn. And yeah, that's kind of it. I guess that makes sense.
I'm cutting you off, but अभी मैंने जो अपने एक्सपीरियंस में देखा है कि जो लड़का नया आता है उसने कोई रिसर्च नहीं की होती, उतनी रिसर्च नहीं की होती जितनी करनी चाहिए। जो नए लड़के आ रहे हैं उनको ये भी नहीं पता कि वो किधर रहेंगे, कहाँ रहेंगे, क्या काम करेंगे, कोई जॉब वगैरह कैसे करेंगे। हमारे पाकिस्तान में यही मेंटालिटी होती है कि आप कनाडा पहुंच जाओ, आप अब्रॉड चले जाओ तो बहुत ही कोई बेहतर ज़िंदगी है, कि यहाँ पे सोना बिक रहा है और हमें बस गालियाँ देते हैं बैक होम।
बिल्कुल. It's like, because Pakistan में, as you know, we've set up a society where, like या तो घर वाले आपका साथ देंगे, अम्मी अब्बू साथ देंगे. By no means that is a wrong thing. Alhamdulillah, that's actually a very, very good thing. But it's also taught us to be, it's taught us to not expand. Oh, we're getting a phone call.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to cut this. Sorry, bro. Aman's calling. Do you mind calling him back? We'll see where he's at. But yeah, so back to it. Essentially, let me see if I can word this properly. Yes. In Pakistan, we're taught to be comfortable.
Comfortable.
I can't even speak.
Comfortable.
Bro. In Pakistan, we're taught to be comfortable, right? And so what that means is take less risks. Jo chalta aa raha hai, wahi chalao aap, and just keep doing what is doing right. And it's cool. I mean, it works. It gets the job done. Like if we're talking about getting the job done, gets the job done. But it's also like, okay, how can you expand on that? It really comes back to what is the core purpose of your life. If you're a Muslim, obviously you believe that, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to live your life according to the message of Islam. But it's kind of like relating to that in a sense कि Pakistan में, it's like you're stuck to day-to-day affairs. Like बिजली नहीं है, पानी नहीं है, gas नहीं है, you're stuck to these
day-to-day के जो मसले होते हैं उसमें फंसा रहता है।
Yes. Exactly. And so thinking outside the box or thinking ahead of the horizon, that's like a thing where it's not really prevalent there. And so here, where you have all your basic needs, you're forced to think outside the box now. Because now that everyone has their basic needs are met, they're obviously going to excel in their life too, right? And what does that create? That creates competition. And competition creates like just another level of like just experience per se.
Yes. Would you say that Canada is a lot more competitive than living back home?
100%. it's one of the reasons why it's competitive is because of the accessibility of resources. You know, like if you look at us, for example, as international students, we're getting access to this university, this campus, you know, all these things and things we can take advantage of resources, right? Pakistan, it's not really the case. So it's like the general caucus of people will take advantage of that. Does that kind of make
यस
sense?
तो आप ये कहना चाहते हैं कि पाकिस्तान में रहते हुए आप उस तरह अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ को इस्तेमाल नहीं कर सकते जिस तरह कनाडा में कर सकते हैं. जिस तरह कनाडा में जो आपको अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ मिलती हैं वो बहुत बेहतर हैं कंपेयर टू पाकिस्तान की अपॉर्चुनिटीज़.
Yeah.
बट डज दैट नेसेसरली ट्रांसलेट इनटू यू लिविंग ए फंडामेंटली बेटर लाइफ?
Not necessarily, no. It really comes back down to self-discipline and how you see life in general. Canada is a place, as we know, it's a capitalistic society. Capitalistic society.
Capitalistic
Yeah.
society.
And basically what that means is it's very approachable in a sense. Okay, wherever you put your eggs in, it'll grow. Wherever you do your efforts, it'll grow. And there's always reasons. There's ways to climb up the ladder, whether that's any industry, especially in a country like Canada, because they give equal importance to pretty much any industry out there, right? And kind of, yeah, that's essentially how it goes. My mind completely blanked. I'm sorry.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's the first time we're
Yeah.
shooting a podcast.
Yeah.
This is the first episode of the podcast. So, नाजरीन अगर आप सुन रहे हैं और कह रहे हैं ये बॉयज यंग लड़के क्या लगे में अपना
क्या लगे
क्या
हुए?
बातें कर रहे हैं. हमारी पहली पॉडकास्ट है और हम लगे हुए हैं.
Let's switch gears a little bit. I have a question for you.
Yes.
How long have you been in Canada, first of all?
I've been in Canada for about 8 months now.
Okay. And give me like 5 points of how you saw life before you came to Canada versus now.
It is very different. Everything has been flipped on its head. I thought that things would be a lot easier than they are, but they're not. It's more difficult to live alone. अब हम जैसे जो लड़के होते हैं तुझे पता है बैचलर्स करने जो बाहर आ रहा है वो लड़का फ़र्क ही है.
हाँ.
तो उस तरह के लड़के जब बाहर जाते हैं तो उनके पास बहुत से कंफर्ट होते हैं बैक होम. लॉट्स ऑफ कंफर्ट्स दैट दे हैव उनके पास अब नहीं होते. और मैंने यही नोटिस किया है कि देयर वर प्लेसेस वेयर माय फैमिली वाज हेल्पिंग मी आउट एंड आई डिडंट realize that they were. And now that I live alone, I truly understand how much they have done for me. Because जब आप पाकिस्तान कराची लाहौर में कोई लड़के होते हो गए अच्छे घराने से और आपके पास वो मोज़ों वाला नौकर होता है साहब जी आपके मोज़े उतार दूँ तो उस तरह के हिसाब से अब आप जब खुद अकेले रहते हैं और हर काम खुद करते हैं बर्तन मांजते हैं. आपको पता है हमारा कल्चर कैसा होता है. लड़कों ने तो कभी बर्तन मांजते नहीं होते, लड़कियों के काम होते हैं. उसी तरह आप यही सीखते हैं अपने काम करने कैसे, अपने काम बंदा करता कैसे और किस तरह आपकी फैमिली आपको हेल्प करती है. तो फंडामेंटली आई हैव लर्न टू cherish what my family has given me a lot more than what I did before.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah. That's very, very true. सबसे ज़्यादा जो मुझे चीज़ें हमें नज़र आता है is just settling here socially has been one of the biggest challenges here, you know. Alhamdulillah, we're part of the MSA. उसकी वजह से we get access to a lot of Muslim people and like-minded people, right? But I've met with a lot of other like individuals that are trying to settle here and they haven't had the access to that community. Mainly because either they don't know about it or it's like they feel like it's, you know, there's multiple factors on why they don't pursue that. But it's like Pakistan mein, your parents have already done the networking. They've already done the socialization. They've already done meeting your neighbors. They've already done, you know, finding a good neighborhood. And so that trickles down to a set where like you grow up, you already know who your friends are. You already know how they are. And your parents don't need to process any more information on them because they already know, you know, ghar wale, they know them. And that translates to either family or family friends, your school maybe aap dekh lein. So it's like, that's one of the biggest shocks, I'd say, coming here is just finding those similar mindset of people. It doesn't necessarily have to be like Pakistanis in general, but I'd say in a more broader scale, more related to like the message of Islam and just more Islamically active in a sense. Because as you know, in Canada,
सेकुलर सोसाइटी है और इसमें सेकुलर सोसाइटी वाले मसले होते हैं.
we're a secular society and it's like, you really have to make a conscious decision to I just realized test. Okay, this sounds a lot better.
Yes.
Okay, so I should probably move around a little bit. Yo, Abdulaziz is calling me. Okay, I'll call him back. It's okay. But coming back to this, sorry if I'm relating this too much to religion, but in Canada, you have the freedom to do whatever you want, right? And that can lead into very different ways.
Very different society this is.
That can
Very
lead-
different.
exactly.
और मेरे अपने एक्सपीरियंस में 2 तरह का लड़का आता है पाकिस्तान से.
Yeah.
एक लड़का होता है शपाटर. उसने करनी है चर्स और पीनी है दारू. सीधी सीधी बात है. वो लड़का आता है, वो कहता है भाई अब मुझे मिल गई खुली छूट. और खुली छूट के साथ जो वो करता है वो आप देख ही सकते हैं. लड़के तो
Yeah.
हमेशा न्यूज़ में आ जाते हैं किस बॉय ने क्या कर लिया नहीं किया.
बिल्कुल.
और हम कुछ खास कहना नहीं चाहते. पर दूसरा लड़का होता है फुल मजहबी. वो लड़का आया होता है गल्फ़ से, या वो लड़का आया होता है पाकिस्तान से, अच्छे घराने से, अच्छे कंजर्वेटिव बैकग्राउंड से. तो पर्सनली इतनी फ्रीडम है कि आप जो चाहें कर लें. कुछ लड़के होते हैं वो कुछ अलग तरीक़ों के काम में निकल जाते हैं. कुछ लड़के आपकी तरह असद भाई आए हैं. असद भाई MSA के बहुत रेगुलर मेंबर हैं. असद भाई की
Alhamdulillah.
बहुत इनपुट है MSA में माशाल्लाह.
Alhamdulillah. A lot of it comes down to who you surround yourself with. You know, there's a hadith by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he says, "You become your company." Essentially, that's the summary of the hadith, and that's very, very important because if you really think about it, throughout your life, whoever friend groups you've surrounded yourself with, you eventually become like them. You start to you get to influence by them, and so if you look at yourself, for example, here, where if you're hanging with non-Muslim friends, your dynamic is completely different than hanging out with Muslim friends. You know, whether that's your humor, the way you dress things, the cultural values, what's of value to a non-Muslim person is different to a Muslim person.
यस. और उर्दू का मुहावरा है खरबूजा खरबूजे को देख के रंग बदलता है. और असद भाई ने तो बहुत रंग बदले. हम भी बहुत लोगों को जानते हैं जो रंग बदलते रहते हैं.
Alhamdulillah.
और अगर कोई लड़का हमारा सुन रहा है, कोई शपाटर, वो बाहर खड़े हैं अभी, तो उनको यही कहना चाहता हूँ, वॉइस देख लो, खरबूजा रंग बदलता है. हम पॉडकास्ट शूट करें, तू भी कर ले.
It all comes to starting it, you know, take the first step. and go
दिस
for
इज़
it.
द फर्स्ट स्टेप. अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह.
Alhamdulillah. और कोई टॉपिक है भाईजान?
बहुत टॉपिक्स हैं बॉस. आप हैं, टॉपिक कैसे नहीं हो सकता. हमारे असद भाई जो हैं, अब थोड़ा सा इंट्रोडक्शन ही दे देते हैं. वी जंप स्ट्रेट इनटू द एक्शन.
No, I don't need an introduction, bro.
यू डोंट वांट एन इंट्रोडक्शन?
I don't need one, bro.
You
I haven't done anything in my life, bro.
कम
What
ऑन बडी,
introduction am I
कम
supposed
ऑन.
to-
अब थोड़ा सा अगर मुंह मीठा कर लूँ, असद भाई जो हैं वो, उनकी कंपनी है असद इलियास मीडिया. असद भाई वर्क्स विद सेवरल कंपनीज. ही शूट्स फॉर द MSA एज वेल. और उन्हीं के इनपुट के साथ हम आज पॉडकास्ट शूट करें.
Alhamdulillah, bro. Alhamdulillah. Karim bhai hamare, mashallah. Very active member in the community. Great personality, bro. I love the guy. I love how he socializes. I love his personality. और हमें लॉन्डो कहते हैं इसको. ये फ्यूचर इमरान खान फुल शवाटर लॉन्डो.
ये मैं इसको जब भी मिलता हूँ ना, ये मैंने टर्टल नेक पहनी होती है, मतलब भाई तू इमरान खान लगता है. सीधी सीधी बात है. मैं इमरान खान लगता हूँ.
हाँ.
अब आप कैमरे पे देख सकते हैं नाजरीन, अगर मैं इमरान खान जैसा लगता हूँ कमेंट्स में डाल दीजिए. मैं आज तक किसी ने मुझे नहीं कहा. ये असद भाई वाले आदमी हैं जो मुझे आके कहते हैं भाई तू इमरान खान लगता है, तू इमरान खान लगता है.
हाँ. गूगल करें आप 90s की, इमरान खान की 90s की कोई तस्वीर निकालें, just compare it to him, bro.
What he actually does is when I show up somewhere, anywhere, when I wear a turtleneck, वो आता है भाई, इमरान खान की 90s फोटो देता है, he puts it beside me, और लोगों को जाके पूछता भाई ये इमरान खान जैसा लगता है, इमरान खान जैसा लगता है. वो आगे से बंदा क्या ही देता है, हाँ लगता है.
सही बात है यार, सही बात है. What else can
We have topics. We should write this shit down.
yeah, you know what they say, do like research on it, so that's
Yes.
pretty funny.
असद भाई अभी गूगल करने लगे पॉडकास्ट पे बात क्या करनी चाहिए. गुड टॉपिक्स फॉर पॉडकास्ट. कम ऑन मैन.
Yo, let's see what we can come up with. Technology, social media, fashion.
असद भाई,
Okay, I have a topic.
I have a topic as well.
Okay, what's your topic?
चैट जीपीटी के बारे में आपको क्या लगता है? चैट जीपीटी के क्या फ़ायदे हैं, क्या नुकसान हैं? चैट जीपीटी, everyone has a take on chat GPT. I am telling you, everyone has a take. If you go to some random chapadi, if you go to some random मांगने वाला, उसको बोलो भाई चैट जीपीटी के बारे में क्या बताओ, वो तुझे 5 मिनट की स्पीच दे देगा कि भाई मुझे क्या लगता है चैट जीपीटी के बारे में. Everyone has a take. आपकी क्या take है?
Okay, so one of the biggest takeaways with ChatGPT is it can do a lot of things, right? It can do research, it can generate articles, it can do coding, it can do whatever you want it to do, right? And it's always adapting to your input. If you think about it, really, it's a personal assistant you've never thought you needed, but you need. And what that
Yes.
means is like you can feed it 1,000 articles and it'll generate like a summary for you, or you can tell it to do like, you know, essentially you can tell it to do like the lame, dirty work of like administrative work. Sorry, mind my language, but it's, and that's where the biggest advantage is, you know? People talk about, okay, you know what, ChatGPT is going to replace human beings, and that may or may not be the case. Why? Because ChatGPT learns based on what we do and what we give it, right? And so if we give it false information, it'll generate false results. If we give it true information, it'll generate true results. There's no, like, it's learning based on whatever has been done and whatever it's told to do. So essentially, though it is artificial intelligence, it doesn't have a mind of its own.
Have you heard of the Chinese room thought hypothesis? एक इसी बारे में कि क्या machines कभी sentient हो सकती हैं, एक computer scientist ने ये hypothesis दिया था. If I gave you a Chinese dictionary and they are Chinese people outside, they probably are Chinese people outside. If Chinese people send you letters in Chinese and you decode them through a Chinese dictionary and you know it perfectly, और आप उस उल्टी तरफ उनको नज़र आता है भाई इसको चाइनीज़ बहुत अच्छी आती है, उनको नज़र आता है कि असद भाई जो हैं बिल्कुल चाइनीज़ है. तो डू यू नो चाइनीज़?
I don't know Chinese.
You don't know Chinese. What you're doing is you're using the information that you have to generate a result. But I think that the question if this will become sentient or not is entirely ridiculous. It doesn't matter if it will become sentient. What matters is that it becomes dangerous. Because if we are harmed by AI, which we are, the algorithms that run our phones, that run Facebook, that run Instagram are stealing your data. They are stealing your data to get you to buy things. And they are actively harming you. And it does not matter if it's sentient or not. कोई बंदा बैठा हुआ है फेसबुक पे, ज़करबर्ग बैठा होगा, उसने कहा भाई हम ये करते हैं, इसको ये चीज़ बेच दे, इनको ये आइडियाज़ बेच दो. And that's what they do. So it doesn't matter if it's sentient or not. What matters is if people will use it for evil, and people are people. And throughout human history, they have been using things for evil. And they will continue to do so. अभी पिछले दिनों Sam Altman जो है CEO and creator of OpenAI is no longer on the team, no longer on the board.
Wow.
And what that means is that the board decided, the OpenAI board that runs the affairs in OpenAI does not want Sam Altman to handle decisions. And I believe that is a monumental, historic moment. Because the corporations have won.
100%.
And we can't do anything about it.
You can see, like, there's a whole agenda behind it, you know? Even, for example, Elon Musk with his Twitter, how he converted to X, he fired, like, 70% of his staff. And if you look into it, why did he fire them? Is because those 70% were literally there for content curation and just content filtering. And so you're thinking, is it really freedom of speech? If it is, why do you need tens and thousands of people to monitor your content? So then, yeah, go ahead.
My next question is there such a thing as freedom of speech? Can speech be free?
Fully free?
Fully free.
Probably not. Essentially, no. Because, well, in Canada, we don't have freedom of speech, we have freedom of expression. And so what that means is you can express what you want, but you can't enforce it on anyone. But if we remove everything, like if we remove culture, if we remove like nationalities, if we go back to like, let's say, the fundamental image of Islam, if we picture ourselves in the ideal Islamic society, there are certain things you can't say, right? For example, you can't talk bad about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You can't talk about like God having multiple partners, right? So
परफेक्ट इमेज ऑफ इस्लाम भी नहीं कि क्या दूर की बात है, पाकिस्तान में भी नहीं बात कर सकते. ये पाकिस्तान में आपको पता है 295 हो जाते लड़के.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we're far from a perfect society, but the whole concept of freedom of speech is like, it's very flawed, I'd say, because as humans, we have to understand, you know, there are certain boundaries in our abilities and capabilities. And after those boundaries is where God comes in, right? So then it's a very complicated thing, but then if you, like, there are certain things you should be understanding in life that, okay, you know what, this should be respected and followed. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes. So what you're saying is that there are some boundaries. Speech cannot be free because there will be some boundaries, and those will be dictated by the values of that society.
Yes.
जिस तरह इधर कनाडा में, मैं ज़्यादा कहना नहीं चाहता, लेकिन इतनी स्पीच इतनी फ्री नहीं है.
Yeah.
अगर आप कुछ बात कर दो against certain groups of people, then there will be repercussions for that.
100%. You can clearly see that with so many people getting fired over the latest things that are happening these days.
जी जी फ़लस्तीन के आप देख सकते हैं क्या हो रहा है फ़लस्तीन में. अब हम कमेंट नहीं कर सकते उस पर.
बिल्कुल.
उसकी वजह से बहुत लोग हैं इधर कनाडा में जिनको अपनी जॉब से फायर कर दिया कि आप जो हैं वो टेररिस्ट को सपोर्ट करते हैं, आप फ़लस्तीन को क्यों सपोर्ट करते हैं. और इसी तरह आप देख सकते हैं स्पीच यहाँ भी फ्री नहीं है, पाकिस्तान में फ्री भी नहीं है, और मुझे नहीं लगता कहीं भी स्पीच टोटली फ्री होती है.
Mm-hmm.
और
It's very true.
pivoting our topic back to ChatGPT and OpenAI, technology is dangerous. It is actively dangerous. अगर आप सुन रहे हैं और कोई हमारे 40 साल के देसी अंकल जो हैं वो पॉडकास्ट सुन रहे हैं, अपने बच्चों की मीडिया जो है वो आप रेगुलेट किया करें. इंटरनेट पे जो आ गया है, जो आने वाला है, वो हमें उसका अंदाज़ा नहीं है. और हमारी जनरेशन इंटरनेट पे बड़ी हुई, फिर भी हमें अंदाज़ा नहीं है आगे क्या हो रहा है. चैट जीपीटी जैसी जो बिलाएँ होती हैं वो अब बहुत कुछ ख़त्म कर सकती हैं. एंड यू कैन क्रिएट एनीथिंग. हमारी इस पॉडकास्ट का जो नाम है वो भी हमने चैट जीपीटी से पूछा था. भाई हम पाकिस्तानी गाइज हु विल टॉक अबाउट पाकिस्तानी पॉलिटिक्स इन कनाडा, मेपल चाय पॉडकास्ट. हम चैट जीपीटी का बहुत हाथ है इस पॉडकास्ट में, और आगे आने वाली चीज़ों में भी बहुत हाथ होगा. तो अगर आप सुन रहे हैं नाज़रीन, तो अपने बच्चों का ध्यान किया करें, उनकी इंटरनेट की फैसिलिटीज़ जो हैं वो बहुत मॉनिटर किया करें. अब हम अंकल जी को क्या बताएं. अंकल जी बहुत कुछ होता है यहाँ पे, ये आप सोच भी नहीं सकते इंटरनेट में क्या होता है. ये डार्क वेब शार्प वेब वाला गूगल करें, आपको सब समझ आ जाएगा.
Yeah.
तो आपकी क्या राय है कमिंग टू सेंसरशिप एंड द इंटरनेट? डू यू थिंक kids should be allowed on the internet, and if so, at what age?
So if you think about it, the internet is like a lot of information that's being thrown at you at once. And it's also a lot of information at your accessibility at once. Now, to understand what's fundamentally right and wrong, you should be aware of what the definition of right and wrong is, right? The objective definition. Remove subjectivity from your mind, because at one point you start to realize that, okay, human minds are biased and we tend to lean over certain things in life, you know? So that's number one, to understand what is objectively right and wrong. And now if you think of it, what's like, obviously there may be exceptions, but what's the chance or what's the percentage of children nowadays fundamentally, objectively understanding what is right, what is wrong, what is morally right, what is morally wrong? And a lot of kids nowadays, especially I talk to, some of them they have no clue. They're just basing their answers on what they see around them, right? Society in general. That's what they're basing their answers on. And that's a very risky way to see things, because that may or may not be the true thing. For example, a lot of local white people here, if you talk to them, let's go back to the issue of Palestine, right? And if you talk to a lot of local people here, they genuinely think that Palestine and like Hamas, they're just one group, and that they're just terrorists trying to bomb Israel. That's what they think, and that's what media has portrayed them to think, right? In their eyes, they genuinely think they're right, and that's where things are like, yo, this is what's actually happening. And you tell that to them, a lot of them, they're like, what? They're like so clueless. A lot of them are shocked too, because it's one area in their life where they thought they were really confident on, but now there's a whole spectrum they have never discovered. And so that's kind of where, like, to sum it up all, but it's kind of like understanding what objectively right and wrong is. And that doesn't come at a young age. Like, I'd say that, especially nowadays, like, bro, there's no way we can be the people in the previous times where their intellect capabilities were through the roof. Or in like if you look at, obviously, you know, some people say that the average smartness of a child has gone up, but how much has it gone up, you know? Is it just because of the fact that if you feed someone so much information, they can generate so much information? Or is it someone that you can feed so much information and they can filter out, okay, what is right and wrong, and make productive use out of that information?
Coming back to the Chinese room experiment. तो
Yeah.
आपको लगता है आजकल के बच्चे Chinese room हो रहे हैं. They have more information that they don't know what to do with. Or maybe they might be able to connect it in ways that creates a good output. लेकिन वो खुद अपनी generation नहीं कर सकते. अपनी new information, new ideas नहीं create कर सकते.
They can create. I think they're more creative than us than they'll ever be. Like the newer generation is always more creative. Like if you look at yourself, for example, you probably thought of ideas. Your dad's like, whoa, I never thought of that. your kids will probably think of ideas that you've never thought of. So the creativity aspect is always going to increase. It's really about understanding. Again, coming back to it's about what's the objective truth and stuff. And some people may think there's a certain percentage of people that think that even the word Islam, like looking at through Islamic things Islamically, is like a bias itself. And that's another debate, which I'm definitely not qualified for. But if you really study Islam itself in a very logical way, Islam never stops you from asking questions. It always encourages you to find the answers, but find the right answers. What's the right answers? It always leads back to Islam because it knows, the religion knows, Allah knows what's the truth, And so it's like Allah's designed us that way. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes. So pivoting away from Islam to the non-Muslims in the audience, क्या आपको लगता है कि without a religious framework आप morality construct कर सकते हैं? Can you create a moral framework without religion, or is there a necessity to have religion or any religious structure? I don't want to talk about other faiths, but to the non-Muslims in the audience, to the Hindus, the Sikhs, and the Christians who are listening, do you guys think that there can be such a thing as a society that is not built upon the religious ideals of of the people of that country?
I can't speak for everyone. I have a very limited experience in when it comes to different religions, but from what I've seen so far is if we take a step back and let's say we explore the average or not the morals of any religion. Some of the main morals of every religion is, don't kill someone unjustly. Be truthful to your Lord, whoever may that be. Keep yourself accountable. Don't harm others. It's always spread good or keep evil to yourself. That's essentially the main verdict of every single religion out there. If another religion that says otherwise, that's kind of debatable, because then you're thinking, okay, why would you follow a religion that doesn't promote doesn't foster positiveness, a good community, right? Essentially, that's what every religion does. Now, let's take now that we've established that, okay, every religion has one objective, to create positivity, right? Let's just generalize it to a very large scale. What does positivity mean? We know positivity means just spread goodness, try not to do evil, try not to hurt others, be truthful to yourself, be modest, whatever those things may be. If you look at all the history and all the messengers that we've gotten on earth, the ultimate message they sent out is, I'm trying to word this in a way, but ultimately all the messengers that came across, right?
If anyone from the MSA is listening, Asad Bhai is not affiliated with the MSA right now. He is with Maple Chai Podcast. And these are Asad Bhai's uncensored opinions that we will be putting on the internet. So I don't want your job with the MSA to be under fire.
Thank you.
By the way, but regardless, Asad Bhai, you were saying?
Again, I have a very limited experience, but if we look at a very general scale, since every religion promotes positivity, and for example, a lot of the Christians, and a lot of Canadian culture here, what do they say? The early bird gets the worm. Now, if you dig into it, why does it start? Why is it that humans perform better when they wake up earlier in the morning and sleep at night earlier? And why is it that certain things, for example, why is it that being kind to others makes you feel good? Why are these things the way they are? Islam has an explanation for every single one of them, and it's called your fitrah. It's called how you are designed as a human.
Your fitna could loosely be translated into your nature of being.
Exactly. And so it's coming back to what you said, how you need, if you need a religious ground for morality, I think morality and religious grounds go hand in hand, because if you study them all together, they always line up to one single cause.
So you're saying that morality and religion cannot decouple from itself.
Exactly.
और अगर किसी ने नीचा पढ़ा हुआ है तो नीचा भी ये बात करता है. और अब मैं वो quote I cannot say the quote. I don't remember it fully from memory.
Yeah.
But Nietzsche talks about exactly this. Yeah. And you guys can read a little Nietzsche about how morality and religion are deeply tied.
Yeah.
And when Nietzsche, the philosopher, was seeing Europe secularize, what he saw was the death of something so great, so holy, that there is nothing that can fill the void. And coming back to what you said, I think personally, when there is a society that does not have God to ground them, or any religious framework, no offense to the Sikhs in the audience, I come from a Indic background, so of course I Sikh, Hindu, Musliman, ye sochta hu. But when there is a death of God in a society, something else fills that void, and that something else might not be the best thing.
Yeah.
For example, when you go to a masjid, when you go to a mandir, when you go to a church, the things you see there, the social connection, cannot be covered by going to a concert. A concert is a equivalent system where you get together with strangers and you worship something. And it's secular to think that when you're worshiping something, it's somebody who's performing music, but it does not need to be music. It does not need to be secular.
Yeah.
And human beings have this innate drive to worship, and we cannot get over that drive just by replacing it with concerts or YouTube or PewDiePie. PewDiePie used to be this old YouTuber. Is he still famous?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, he's still famous. So PewDiePie और जो लोग होते हैं उनसे आप ये नहीं बुरा कर सकते.
Yeah. And obviously you've done dawah way more than me. And so in your experience, how do you tie a person to that? Like, how do you bring them back to it?
It's difficult. It depends on the person you're giving dawah to. If a person is coming from an emotional background, I'm not really the best with them, because you have to talk to them emotionally, you have to comfort them, and you have to give them information. For the non-Muslims in the audience, the dawah is giving people information about Islam. That is what dawah is. So I used to give dawah with the MSA, not anymore, and I wouldn't like to say why. But coming back to my point, when you're giving dawah, it really depends on who you're giving dawah to and what kind of person they are. If Asad Bhai is a very logical person, then I will construct my arguments out of the Western canon of philosophy. And if somebody is more emotional and they are more keen to emotional arguments, then you can tell them about Islam through emotionality. So that is my take in giving dawah, and I have had a fun time giving dawah. It is an amazing time, mashallah.
Yeah.
And it's good. You should try it.
One thing I've noticed is general caucus of people, when they like to think what is good just by themselves. If you put someone by themselves and tell me what do you think the top 10 good things are to do in life, and let them generate a list. And you say that for like anyone out there, regardless of religion, culture, or background. You'll notice a lot of things they talk about is already mentioned in the Quran. Why is that? And like, okay, even if you pick people that have never read the Quran in their life, never even heard about it, ask them, what do you think is a good thing to do in life? It's a high chance the Quran has already mentioned it. Islam has already talked about it, or there's a hadith about it. That makes you really think, why is it like that? Is it really Islam that's limiting your perspective? Or is Islam the actual factual truth?
And that is an amazing point. And I don't want to keep you talking about Islam. Asad Bhai, you have many ideas. And let's switch over to Pakistan.
Okay.
And your take of living as a Pakistani in Canada.
Yeah.
And कितनी देर हो गई आपको यहाँ पे रहते हुए?
मुझे हो गए
ये भाई का कराची एक्सेंट बाहर आ गया ना, मुझे हो गए. तो असद भाई कराची से हैं ओरिजिनली, और 3 साल से यहाँ रह रहे हैं, और उनका बहुत अच्छा एक्सपीरियंस रहा है माशाल्लाह.
अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह.
और असद भाई जो हैं उनको he is one of the best people living in the Vancouver area around our age to ask these questions.
You're too kind, bro. You're too kind.
It's just the truth. Asad Bhai has his own company, Asad Ilyas Media. He didn't want me to talk about this on the podcast, but here we are. It has to come up eventually. And Asad Bhai जो हैं बहुत काम करते हैं इस तरह के media related. And this podcast is also brought to you by Asad Ilyas Media.
It's brought to you also by Maple Sportswear. वो CEO बैठा हुआ है पीछे मोबाइल पे टेक्सटिंग कर
रहा है लड़का. क्या
इसका असल शपाटर तो वो पीछे बैठा हुआ है लौंडा.
So this is also sponsored podcast. So कमिंग बैक टू पाकिस्तान,
Yeah.
आपकी क्या राय है पाकिस्तानी लड़के को क्या रिसर्च करनी चाहिए बिफोर कमिंग टू कनाडा, एंड शुड ही कम टू दिस स्टेट?
I'm just trying to think and compile my answers. Yeah, sorry for taking so long. The top things to research when coming here is, well, obviously your things like how the laws work. How do you live by yourself? What top things you should know? Okay, ye cheezein. For example, this is how you should manage your schedule. This is how this is the type of people you should move around with, or this is how you can manage your courses. This is how, like those, I feel like those are superficial things. Like anyone can learn how to logistically live by themselves. That's not the problem. The biggest problem is how do you regulate yourself when you're living by yourself? Your mom isn't there to scream at you कि बेटा पढ़ाई कर लो. Your dad isn't there to scream at you कि बेटा घर कब आओगे, 11 बज गए. There's no one to regulate you anymore. Now is the time where you really truly discover, okay, how many of the things that you've been doing in your life, are they done just because of the culture you're in, or is it because something you're actually convinced on? These boys are trying to do something. What are you guys trying to do? Okay, we have a new logo.
We have a new logo. So you're saying कि logistically आप समझ सकते हो कि किस तरह रहना है अकेले, पर ये समझना बड़ा मुश्किल है कि क्या चीज़ें मुझे रेगुलेट करती थी. जिस तरह माँ बाप जो होते हैं वो बहुत रेगुलेट करते हैं. माँ बाप की डांट खाना बहुत एसेंशियल होता है हमारे लिए. हमारे जैसे लड़के होते हैं हमारी उम्र में, जिस तरह काम, अब आपका पता नहीं, हमने तो बहुत ऐसे काम किए हैं.
Same bro, same.
सो यस, तो असल मसला यही है इधर कि इमोशनल रेगुलेशन और रेगुलेटिंग योरसेल्फ एज अ is exponentially harder than what I thought firstly.
Yes.
So have you had the same experience where you thought it would be easier than it is?
Personally, I've been through enough shit in my life to understand what it means to be emotionally regulated. So मुझे इतना कोई ज़्यादा मसला नहीं हुआ. But there have been moments and situations in my life, especially here in Canada, where I'm just like, yo, I have no idea what I'm gonna do. Whether that's making a decision or like, I just genuinely have no clue, bro. Sometimes I wish I was like, yo, I wish my parents were in front of me so I could talk to them about it, but they're not there. And sure, you have the privilege of technology and everything to call them up, but there's certain things you just have to face by yourself. And that really comes with a lot of trial and error. And that also comes with a lot of observation and a lot of listening. We humans learn by intaking, and that intake is processed in our brains to whatever we think is factually right, and then that's processed out, right? And so that's kind of how it runs per se. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes. तो असद भाई ये कहना चाहते हैं कि एक्सपीरियंस टीचर्स यू, और एक्सपीरियंस से जो बंदा सीखता है
100%.
वो कोई और चीज़ सिखा नहीं सकते. यहाँ आके जो मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट इन्फॉर्मेशन जो है, जो मैंने सीखी है कि कुछ चीज़ें हैं वो आप सिखा सकते भी नहीं.
बिल्कुल.
हम जितनी भी बात कर लें इस पॉडकास्ट पे कि इस तरह होता है कनाडा, दिस इज़ व्हाट इट फील्स लाइक टू बी हियर, दिस इज़ द एक्सपीरियंस, दिस इज़ व्हाट इट्स लाइक डूइंग योर फर्स्ट जॉब, हम बातें जितनी भी कर लें हम एक्सप्लेन नहीं कर सकते. वी कैन नॉट टीच यू what you have not experienced.
Exactly. That also comes down to a lot of like interpersonal skills. In so far the experience of, like in my limited experience of like hiring people, working with companies, working with clients, the biggest thing I've noticed is you cannot teach them how to be a good person or a kind person or a person that's more receptive to people. How about you?
Change the position of the mic, it's covering your face.
Okay. Do you want me to go
मैं
like,
शॉर्ट में हूँ.
Yeah, you're in short.
do you want me to go like this?
Yeah, this is fine. Yeah.
We out. Is that good?
Yep.
Okay. What was I saying? I forgot.
You were talking about how you have had an experience with dealing with people and you cannot teach them to be kind people.
Yes. So the thing that you talked about, you can't teach people one to be nice. That's something you just have to learn yourself and also understand what being nice is. That's like a very different debate, but how to be a good worker, what it means to have ethics in your life, what it means to have discipline in your life, what it means to have principles in your life. People respect people with principles. If you're a yes man the whole time, people will not respect you. Even if you're like the most top G in the world, you need to set boundaries type of thing, you know? And what it really comes down to is people. Wherever you look at it, it's always about people. The government, people. The school, people. the major you choose, people, the prospects you choose with, people. It really, really comes down to people. And what does that tell you? It tells you that you can learn anything in life, whether that's, skills, industry experience, information. But how do you learn to be a good person? How do you learn to be a person that creates value? And really, if you look at all the business models that have succeeded, why have they succeeded? Is because they provide something called value. They provide, in a cliche sense, they provide something others do not. If you really, really dig into it at a microscopic level, what does that really mean? It means they provide a service or an experience that, number one, is just so unique and it's just so captivating and it's just so easy to pursue, and it really genuinely solves a problem in your life. People will come running for you for it, There is so much money in this world. There is so much resources in the world, but there is such limited number of people that will genuinely make things better.
In your experience,
Yeah.
have you learned to be someone who can create value? And if not, how do you pursue this journey of becoming someone who does create value in this economy?
Specifically, if we talk about just the industry I'm based in, media industry, right? The way you create value, number one, is when you're proactive with everything and you really understand what, for example, your client needs or what is needed to get the job done. That is one of the most important things people cannot answer. If you go to anyone and you tell him to solve this task, it's any task. If it's as simple as, for example, moving this table, right? And you go to a random person, you ask him, how would you move this table? Bro, they'll get stuck. How do you get stuck? Why are you getting stuck? Bro, just move it any way you want. It's because a lot of times they're overthinking it. They're like, okay, what is the right? What is the wrong? There's no right and wrong, bro. Just do it. Get the job done. There are debates on how you can do it more efficiently, but get the job done, And the more and more I work with people, the more I realize, bro, people don't have that common sense, the common sense to do things. They genuinely don't have it, right? Talked with millionaires, bro, and some of these people, mashallah, some of these people are so talented. Why are they talented? Is because they have that common sense in them. Whereas some people, you look at them and you're like, bro, you could be so much more if you just had more common sense in you. And it's very, very underrated, And that really comes with observation and listening to people. Does that kind of make sense?
It does,
Yeah.
it does. So your point is that most people lack this common sense of actually getting things done. They overcomplicate it. They think of more ways of doing it than they actually need to. And what you actually need to do is just get the job done.
Exactly. People will always bash you for doing something wrong. Never in the entire world will you be able to satisfy someone for anything. Us starting this podcast has probably pissed 10 people off somewhere in the world if we post this video up.
It has. Definitely. Most definitely has.
Right? But it's all about, okay, we've done it. How can we improve it? But we've done it, right? The point is, do something. Get out there, गलाज़त थोड़ी होगी, जलील होंगे बंदे
बहुत
थोड़े,
जलील होंगे। मैं तो बहुत जलील होने वाला हूँ, सही बात है। भाई का तुझे पता नहीं है, लेकिन अब बाद में बताएंगे अब, लेकिन हम देख लेते हैं।
But yeah, that's kind of essentially what it comes down to. I hope I made sense, yo.
It made a lot of sense,
Yeah.
yes. And you were very articulate with it as well.
Alhamdulillah, bro. Sometimes I ramble too much,
How did you learn this skill of speaking, not professionally, I should say, but articulately?
Listening and observing. Throughout my entire life, I've always been the person that's never talked about anything. I've always been in the corner just listening, gathering information. And that's really helped me to frame words and my mind in a proper way to understand what things are right.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम नाज़रीन, हम थोड़ी सी टेक्निकल इश्यूज आ गए।
सारे बॉयज बैठे हुए इधर।
एकदम से करीम की नई आवाज आती है।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम नाज़रीन, अब थोड़े से टेक्निकल इश्यूज हमारे हो गए थे, तो उसकी वजह से हमारी पॉडकास्ट बीच में कट हो गई थी।
Yeah.
And we're just wrapping up, so this will be round about the last 10-15 minutes of the podcast. तो असद भाई बात कर रहे थे कि असद भाई ने अपनी करियर में, अपने असद इलियास मीडिया के सोल प्रोप्राइटर होने में बहुत कुछ सीखा मीडिया के बारे में. And one of those things was learning how to speak into a mic, learning how to interact with people. और हम यही बात कर रहे थे कि असद भाई आपने सीखा कैसे एंड हाउ डू यू थिंक समबडी हु वांट्स टू गेट इनटू मीडिया शुड परस्यू दिस करियर एंड लर्न दीज स्किल्स.
I think we kind of touched upon that, right?
We did, but we were talking about how, bhai man, you were talking about how you learned to speak eloquently and
Yeah,
how
yeah,
you
so-
used to remain quiet and then you observe.
Yes, observed.
और आपने फिर हदीस भी एक सुनाई कि
हाँ.
तभी बोलना चाहिए जब कोई काम की बात हो. वैसे बेफालतू नहीं बोलना चाहिए.
वरना खामोश होना चाहिए जी बिल्कुल. I think I kind of did sum up on the thing. What was the one that you want to say after? थोड़ी सी
पान
technical.
पान.
पान.
हाँ.
चल पान के ऊपर बात.
असद भाई सुना है क्या आपने पान से बड़ा कोई एग्जिट किया हुआ है? वो एग्जिट के बारे में बता दे. पान में आप करते थे, कहाँ करते थे, कौन से पार्टनर बॉस? ये तो मैकेनिकों के साथ भाई गुटखा खाता था.
यार देखो असल में पान का सीन ये है ना कि आपको पता है ना कराची में पान का बड़ा इस्तेमाल होता है.
बहुत इस्तेमाल होता है. हमने तो कराची के बारे में बहुत सुना है.
तो मैं जब कराची में था 2016 से लेके 19 तक मैं पार्ट टाइम मैकेनिक के साथ काम करता था. थोड़ा वीकेंड पे चला गया ऐसी काम कर लिया, देख लिया क्या होता है. आपको पता है वो लेबर क्लास है, थोड़ा है ना गुटखा वगैरह होता है पान में. एंड आई यूज्ड टू बी लाइक वेरी चिल विद दोस गाइस. तो आई काइंड ऑफ स्टार्टेड रेप्लिकेटिंग द सेम एक्सेंट, यू नो. सो लाइक सम ऑफ द की थिंग्स आई लर्नड इज आप ना मुंह ऊपर करो जैसे पान लगा हुआ है. पान में सीन क्या होता है, जैसे लिक्विड होता है ना, पान बहुत ज़्यादा होता है. सो इफ यू लुक डाउन
पान बाहर है देखो.
ऊपर करके देखो, सही है. और बाकी यू हैव टू टाइटन अप योर जॉ, राइट. और साथ में यू हैव टू कर्व योर लिप्स as if something's full. So the best way to do this is, for example, drink some liquid, right? Look, you have liquid, right? Put it at the back of your mouth and look up.
Yeah.
जब भाई ऐसे अगर पैसे करके बात करते हो ना
पान खा रहा भाई, पान ठोक के बोल, ये पॉडकास्ट हो रही है क्या हो रहा है?
And then you learn to do it without water.
Yes.
So if you look up, भाई अब मैं आपको बता दूं,
भाई मुझे ना बता, पान ठोक के बोल, ये पॉडकास्ट हो रही है, कोई तमाश भी नहीं हो रही.
अब मैं आपको बताता हूँ कि एक रिक्शे वाले के साथ मेरे से बड़ा मजाक हुआ था, सही है. अब सीन ये हुआ कि मैं रिक्शे वाले के साथ बैठा हूँ, रिक्शा वाला, सही है. And I'm just like there in the back, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, क्या हाल है सर, कैसी तबीयत है? वो बोलता है भाई मैं तुझे क्या बताऊँ, मैं कहूँ पूरे दिन मुझे सवारी मिलती नहीं है, तो मैं क्या बताऊँ क्या हाल है मेरे. मैंने बोला अंकल जी लाइक मिल जाएगी सवारी, लाइक आई एम योर फर्स्ट राइड, यू नो, लाइक इंशाल्लाह may Allah put barak on you.
भाई ने अपनी अंग्रेजी में खाली कर दी. वो भाई का मुंह देखना रह गया. भाई कहाँ से आ गया, थोड़ा मुंडा है.
So the guy goes like, मैं तुझे क्या बताऊँ, यहाँ का ट्रैफिक इतना खराब है. There's like a lot of language he used that I don't want to mention right now, but
वो
essentially.
गालें शालें कट दी उन्होंने.
So he goes like, यार ट्रैफिक इतना खराब है भाई, मैं तुझे क्या बताऊँ, रिक्शे वाले आ जाते हैं घूम घाम के बीच रोड में रोक देते हैं. मैंने कहा अंकल आप भी रिक्शा चलाते हैं तो आप बीच में रुक जाते हैं. And as he was doing that, he literally stopped in the middle and he took a right, bro. Proved his own point, bro. So
यार ये लाहौर में ही, जैसे कराची लाहौर में तो ये हिसाब होता है. तो ट्रैफिक का पता नहीं है. पाकिस्तान में कोई क्या दीन ईमान दूर की बात है कि ट्रैफिक रूल्स नहीं होते.
सही बात है बिल्कुल. तो बस ये आपने रिक्शे वाला से सीखा है. बाकी मैकेनिक जो लाता है वो मैं जब मैकेनिक के साथ था तो वो गाड़ी आती थी कस्टमर की, सही है, और लगाओ छोटे गाड़ी स्टेशन में लगाओ.
तू वो छोटा था?
ना मैं छोटा था.
ओ भाई अपना छोटा था भाई. ओए
So we used to drive up, put it in the ramp, you know, jack it up. Customer walks down from his car and he's like, फिर मैकेनिक बोलता है जी भाई क्या मसला है. कस्टमर बताता है ये हुआ. अच्छा मैकेनिक भी ना साल बड़ा तेज होता है, सही है. जब आम बंदों से बात करेगा ना, पान होगी दिमाग में, सॉरी गालों में, मुंह में होगी पान, बट बिल्कुल आराम से बात करेगा, नॉर्मल. जैसे अभी मैं बोल रहा हूँ ना वैसी, जैसी लेबर के ऊपर देखे ना, फौरन ऊपर ले आओ 10 मिलीमीटर का बोल ले आओ, इंजन ऑयल बदलने इसका प्लग शॉर्ट है भाई, तुम देखो.
भाई प्लग तो और शॉर्ट है तेरा भाई. तूने अपने हमारी पॉडकास्ट प्लग शॉर्ट कर दी भाई.
यार ये बस क्या करें, ऐसे ही भाई, ऐसा बस
क्या ही कर सकते. टेक्निकल इश्यूज हमारे प्रीवियसली हो रही थी भाई. हम तो आधे घंटे से यहाँ बैठे हैं टेक्निकल इश्यूज.
alhamdulillah. Yeah, I think
we should do something to wrap up. What do we do to wrap up?
okay, to wrap up, Jazakallah khair for watching Maple Chai's first session. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys found some value in it. There's a lot of rambling that went on today, mainly just to understand the flow.
इतनी भी रैम्बलिंग नहीं होती है.
अच्छा, rambling नहीं हुई.
रैम्बलिंग नहीं हुई, कम रैम्बलिंग हुई. ये ज़्यादा ही अपने आप को पता नहीं क्या समझता है. So thank you so much for
you.
listening to the first podcast, first episode of Maple Chai. And inshallah, we'll be doing this every Jummah, after Jummah.
After Jummah,
and
inshallah.
we'll see you guys later then. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.